Today's episode is brought to you by 9centprinting.com. With over 100 five-star reviews, 9centprinting.com is ready to meet all your printing needs. Are you a church plant or a small church with no copy machine? No problem. 9cent Printing has you covered. If you need bulletins, flyers, books, cards, offering envelopes, posters, they do it all. I know the Christian owners of this business personally, and I'm not just a fan, I'm also a customer. Fast, nationwide shipping, affordable, professional, wow printing at wow prices. Check them out at 9centprinting.com.
Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in September I'm going pronghorn hunting with my two friends from Oregon. We've been buying preference points for like 7 or 8 years. There, right there. That's what I'm after.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
that's
So
some
I'm
good
super
eating.
excited. And this guy in our church, we have this guy that lives half time in Ohio and half-time in Idaho. And he's been telling me about he wants me to go out and go whitetail hunting with him in Ohio. So I finally booked a flight for January, or like I booked the date for January, and I'm going to go out and preach at this church that's supporting us and go hunting with this guy for some whitetail. So,
Man,
yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
hard to find whitetail in this neck of the woods. It's all mule deer and so yeah.
What county are you going to be in Ohio? Do you know?
I don't know. It's close. It's closer to Cincinnati.
Oh, cool.
So
I just preached down there for Wild Game Dinner in Glenasty, Ohio, which is about 25 minutes from Cincinnati.
okay.
And I think it's Hamilton County that the church is in, but the top two whitetails historically were killed in that county the last 2 years.
Okay.
So some giants down there. It's pretty sweet.
I'd love to get a good whitetail. The mule deer out here, like in Ohio, like he's talking about, like, everyone hunts farms and he's got a bunch of access to farmland and stuff. And but when you hunt mule deer, you're like up in the mountains and stuff like that. So it's kind of a different hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, all right, let me do the intro and then we'll get back into it. All right, welcome back to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. This podcast is a ministry of Small Town Network. We exist to make disciples, train pastors, and plant churches in smaller communities. My name is Eric Nielsen. I'm joined again today by Tony Colomb and our new friend, Adam Ray, who's going to take me hunting somewhere exotic, sometime soon. That's what we're hoping. So we kind of left off talking about how your journey from, growing up in the faith, working at your dad's church as a youth guy, and eventually feeling fed up with all teenagers and never wanted to work with them ever again. Which is a gross mischaracterization. But no, we're ready to kind of take the demotion. That's what youth pastors always say, like, oh, that guy got demoted to lead ministry or whatever. So he became the executive pastor at the Tabernacle. Is that what you guys call it, the Tabernacle?
Yeah, it's often referred to as the Tab.
Tab. We have a big in Oregon. There's a Christian church restoration movement, like camp place called the Tab. Am I getting it wrong? The building's called the Tab, Tony, down in
Turner.
Yeah, Turner.
Yeah, it's where the Oregon Christian Convention is.
Oregon Christian Convention. There you go.
I don't know, man. There's not a lot of us that are under 50 that talk about that place, other than it's a retirement village there.
Well, that's a separate thing, but they have this massive.
I know, but that's all you think
massive
about.
old. I know what you're saying. There's massive old barn. It's like
Yeah.
a massive hay barn, like the biggest barn you've ever seen in your life. And somehow it got donated by somebody at some point and became, like, they call it the Tabernacle. So yeah, I'm familiar with the lingo. Why did we tell that long side trail
It's a
story?
great question, because ADD is raging.
There you go. That's right.
So,
So anyway,
We're
so
all
you're
still in ministry.
yeah.
yeah. I
I
feel like it really should be a prerequisite. I know people get irritated,
Should.
folks, but I don't know how you do it otherwise.
I agree.
So you've obviously mentioned a couple things in the previous episode that I think are worth kind of digging into. One of them is the emphasis on discipleship and small groups, which is right up my alley. When we started this church in 2020, the book Simple Church, the books Simple Church and Sticky Church were really informative. And one of the things that Larry Osborne talks about in Sticky Church is the high percentage of adults that are part of their church that are in groups. And you kind of dropped a similar number, like a 70% of our adults that attend our church are in groups.
Mhm.
How did you guys like just take it away? Like tell us about that. How did you come up with that? Why is that the point of emphasis? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so the we follow that was like asking me a question that has so many multifaceted components that my brain just fragged out for a second there. I apologize.
It's all
But
good.
if you go and think of the model that Acts shows us, there
Mhm.
is a clear perspective of what that early church looked like, and the church as it continued, there was this faithful meeting in homes aspect,
Right,
and we're not necessarily like holding everybody to say you have to meet in homes. Some
right,
of people it doesn't work well. Like I told you earlier, ours is out on an archery range. Others will just meet in different rooms of the church. But the impetus behind it is this: when the church begins to develop and grow, if every person that comes into your church is reliant on your individual care as pastor, they all want your attention, your time, and you're responsible directly for each of their discipleship. There's no way possible to do that as the church grows. And like some pastors try, and there's a it's an impossibility to do it well, and you usually end up, I've experienced this at least myself, where you usually end up disappointing people because there's not enough of you to go around, and they're always like, man, you just don't care. Well, of course I care. I just can't be in all these places at once. So we began developing programs, and I'm not a like it's actually snowing pretty hard right now. I just blown away.
I may.
The speaking of ADD, woo, squirrel.
Yeah,
So
right.
as you process though the what is needed and necessary for the care of your people, it is that intimate setting of 6 to 12 people in a home with a leader that cares individually for the needs of those people. And they're a relay mechanism to the pastoral team or to the staff if there's something broader or greater that for them to handle. And we tried several different models. We tried studying books. We tried personal Bible studies. Grab a text and let's just talk about the text. And everybody tell us what you think the text means. Um,
Mhm.
and those are just chaotic methods that don't have centrality in emphasis. And so we're very fragmented in where people are at, what they're learning. And, if you get a good small group leader that puts in the time and effort, you get a great small group. If you have the guy that just shows up and wings it every week, you have a different experience. And so we shifted fully to sermon-based small group model. And
Mhm.
so whoever the pastor is preaching, it's typically John or I. We write our sermons, and then every sermon has a breakdown of our small group questions, which are relating directly to your points and emphasis that you want that passage to have for the people in that context.
Mhm.
And then typically that's 6 to 10 questions that get the conversation rolling. What ends up happening then is there's a life on life formation of human beings. They're praying for each other, they're accountability with each other, they're challenging each other. If there's crisis, they're caring for each other. If one guy's cutting firewood on Friday, he's usually got a few bros from Fight Club or from Tab Women, or not Tab Women, Tab groups. They're showing up to help with the firewood. There's just this community that's built, and God's intent is never that man or woman attempts to do life in isolation. Isolation is the devil's playground, and we see that happen all the time. You believe the lies, you believe whatever you want to believe about even the church when you're isolated from the church. But in
Mhm.
this model, there's that community involvement and care for one another that really is like a clear discipleship pathway. So I'll illustrate it this way a lot from the pulpit. If I have a guy in front of me, a guy behind me, and a guy on either side of me, this is the description of a healthy small group. I've got someone that is further along spiritually than I am that I'm holding on to. Now, obviously, all of us are pursuing Christ. It's not a
Mhm.
man-centric model, but I've got someone that's mentoring, discipling me, that's directing me. I've got somebody that I'm bringing along with me. And then on either side of me, I've got guys that are maintaining I hope you can't hear all those dings, but
Yep.
all of a sudden someone's blowing up my phone. But I've got someone on either side of me that is like guardrails to my Christian walk. And so, if I start to lean to something that's unbiblical, theologically unsound, I've got guys that are there that are helping keep me on track. And so this is how I'm walking. And uh, a lot of times we, at least in my experience, I've seen discipleship become almost like this uh, thing that we're all desiring to attain. And so we have to build all these pathways to get there. I think
Mm,
a very clear biblical model, and we can make it way more formal than this to help people understand, but just in the simplicity of it, is me pursuing Christ and bring somebody along with me as I'm pursuing Christ. So I'm being discipled as I study and I learn and fellowship, but there's intimacy, and now I'm bringing someone else along with me in that process.
mm,
Or I'll describe it like mentoring can be me saying, "Hey, I'll set up an appointment with you at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. You can come to my office and I'll teach you." Discipleship is, hey, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be scouting for next fall or cutting firewood. Come along with me and let's talk about what I'm learning about Jesus and let me have that influence on you in that process.
yeah.
And so there's more of a very practical perspective of discipleship. And the small group model really helps us to initiate that. So our goal by January of 2026 is to see 80%
Mm,
we want 100%. So it's not like only 80%, but
right.
just setting goals.
Yeah.
When I started 2 years ago, we were less than 40%. And
Wow.
so we're seeing a consistent, there's a lot of energy and excitement
Mm,
in the groups. So
yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I like that. A lot of times the method we've kind of chosen is also sermon based, but we do Discovery Bible Study. And the reason we use that format is because it's easy to reproduce. It sets a low bar teaching wise because there's no teacher, right? We take turns guiding. We have someone that's, kind of point person for every group. But I hear so many people say, and it's not like one kind of people or one kind of church, but they just say, yeah, we tried small groups, they don't work. And I'm always like, I've tried small groups and they've never not worked.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I don't know if it's like you're drawing them up different or
Mm,
um and I've obviously got some thoughts on that, but you're the guest. So what do you think are some of the mistakes people make when, because everyone's like, it would be great to have that many people in groups, but we tried it and it just doesn't work. So what are some of the common, like mistakes you think people make or things that they just need to tweak a little bit to see that be successful like you guys have experienced?
Yeah. Three things come to mind immediately. One, um, the more prepared your group is for the text that you're discussing, the broader conversation will be there.
mm,
So we really encourage, let's say you miss Sunday, please come to small group having listened to the sermon online. And the note sheets are available a week in advance. So you can grab those, have them with you, fill out stuff, answer the questions, be ready to discuss.
mm,
Because that leads to a secondary issue. If people aren't really prepared, then whoever that leader or facilitator is can just become a teacher, which
mhm.
is not the model. We have a facilitator of conversation, not a teaching
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
and that just gets awkward depending on who it is. It can be a drudgery to listen.
Mhm.
And so the third thing I think is facilitating or creating questions that are um, that lead a person from a point of knowledge, like, hey, I learned this, I gleaned this Sunday, to a point of application. And
Mm,
so it's not just what did I learn or what else is there in scripture to take away from this, but how does that affect a change in my life? And
mm,
then when we start talking about change, what is what are the hard issues? What are the root issues? What fruit is there that is leading us to believe that maybe there's a deeper, broader heart issue that needs to be challenged or discussed. And then if you're um, kind of surrounded by people that care and love you, that you trust, there's vulnerability. With our small groups, we say what's said in small group stays in small group. It's private. We often divide, if it's a couples group, the last three questions, which are always very intentionally applicable or application driven. Um, we divide the ladies and the men up for that last section a lot in our group, just to foster deeper, more transparent conversation, which has been effective from student ministry all the way to tab groups with couples. But we kind of break it down in what's it say, which is typically handled in the sermon. What's it mean? So deeper, as you finish the sermon, everybody gets the outline, the notes, but then here's more verses that you might want to cross-reference that don't fit in a 37-minute sermon. And here's other teaching points to study. So then what's it mean? A broader, deeper discussion there. And then what's it mean for me? So the application, how am I supposed to apply this and how am I supposed to change? In that model, I mean, typical group is 7 to 9 p.m. Or a 2 hour group. It doesn't matter what time it is. But a 2 hour group, the first 20 to 30 minutes is usually snacks, food, a little bit of fellowship, catching up on the day so that that doesn't filter into the general conversation. And then once we switch to notes, it's very intentionally driven into those notes and starting to answer those questions. And you just see the conversations fostered there that are pretty soul enriching usually.
Yeah. I'm glad you said some of those things about like the sermon notes, because I think like a lot of churches want to do a sermon based type of thing for the cohesion, right? We love that. Like, let's take what's happening on Sunday and filter it down into life throughout the week. So it's not just oh, look, I came in as a spectator for, an hour and I'm gone and that's that for that. But I was wondering a little bit too of like how to make those effective. Like, what does that look like from the preacher's standpoint for the workflow? Like, how do I integrate my sermon notes and transitioning that into those small group questions? Like, what are kind of some of those practical steps you guys take, regardless of who's preaching that week, to make that happen? Do you have like a template you use that you've come up with, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so the three statements that I said,
Yeah.
what's it say, what's it mean, what's it mean for me, that would be as broad as the template goes.
Mhm.
But we're trying to do 3 to 5 questions in each of those categories.
Okay.
So let's say my sermon has 3 points in it. I would then build a question in each of those 3 categories out of each of those points. So if my sermon is written well, it should have,
Sure.
4 points of context and it should have an application. And so I'm pulling from that into those questions.
Hmm.
And one, you can have whatever philosophy you want on AI, but man, when you get your sermon all cranked out and
Yep.
you punch it in there and ask,
Yep.
hey, give me 10 questions from
Yep.
these notes, then I'll just start working and fine tuning. The struggle that I always have is the wording on a point to make it short, catchy, punchy,
Hmm.
and usually sermon titles.
Hmm.
And AI helps a ton with that stuff.
Hey,
So,
man.
and
Yep.
when you're rolling it out
Right.
to your staff on Wednesday, so they can build notes and slides and all the different things, you're like I'm taking a conglomeration, a mess of notes that makes really good sense to me and
Hmm.
trying to make it pretty.
Hmm.
That's a lot of time invested
Hmm.
that now I can use a resource that really helps
Yeah. Yeah.
that down. So
I love this because I think this is some really good practical, like nuts and bolts stuff, a little bit convicting and challenging for any pastor out there. You think of like what are some of the things that can translate to my context in a small rural area in a smaller church for kingdom growth, discipleship, where you have all these people coming from all over the area to one location and they're involved in all these groups. And it's not like the latest and greatest catchy fad things. It's like we want people in relationships. We want them discussing God's word. We want life on life transfer happening there. And if we're going to facilitate an environment in those groups where that can be done well and they are doing a sermon based thing, then I have to make sure I am putting in the time and preparation in my sermon writing that is going to facilitate good cohesive questioning and discussion. So
Yeah, that's
that's a
good.
good word. That's a good
I,
word.
I think, growing up too, I always hate it when I preface a statement by I think when I know something that I'm about to say. Please forgive me for doing that.
Mhm.
But growing up in a church where we had Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night,
Wednesday
in the
night.
context, yeah, in the context I was in, we did student ministry on Wednesday so I could run a or on Monday so I can run a one-on Wednesday. And there's prayer meeting, which was just another teaching time on Wednesday night. Um, you're giving you're giving people like five different uh, studies to think about, and
Mhm.
nobody's taking time to actually implement. I say nobody. In most cases, the majority are not taking time to implement any of that in their life. It's
Right.
just this building up of head knowledge.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so now you're taking one central thought and theme and you're pushing it through 7 days.
Mhm.
Like last night with my fight club, it was cold last night. So
Mhm.
instead of shooting and then doing the study after, we just started the study while we were shooting.
Yep.
And so, one of the first questions, we were in Ephesians 2, Ephesians 4, Ephesians 2, 8 through 10, and then Ephesians 4, 11 through 16.
Mhm.
Uh, at the beginning of Ephesians 2, setting context, it says that you're dead in trespasses and sins.
Mhm.
And so just point it out to the guys again, be reminded when we're dead, we cannot enact life-saving measures upon ourselves. We are
Mhm.
incapable of doing anything about our deadness.
Mhm.
So, what was the verse 4 of chapter 2, but God moment that
Mhm.
transitioned you from death to life? And so I just let guys start talking, right? And they're
Yeah.
telling stories. And four of the guys in that group got saved at last year's sportsman's banquet at our church. And so they're recounting, the guy, well, this guy invited me. I hate church. I didn't want to be there. I come in, there's this fool preaching me, and he's making Christianity sound like something I didn't believe it could be, and
Mhm.
all of this. And so um, that then starts the ball rolling. So then we can talk about God's grace in verse 8,
Mhm.
not of works in verse 9, that we're his workmanship. So this masterpiece. So guys, tell me where God is honing and crafting you this project that's under construction, not to be completed until we see the fullness of Christ. Where's he working? And so then they all start sharing what God's doing, which then easily transitions into the um, a point of application,
Mhm.
as you're moving forward. And so that central theme, but all those guys came in geared up in brain for Ephesians 2, Ephesians 4, and they were like sending in our little group texts,
Mhm.
different thoughts, guys sharing testimony, before we even got to Fight Club. And so I think some can view that and say, well, you're hyper-simplifying, people aren't getting fed. I've been in ministry a long time. It's rare to find dudes on an
Mhm.
archery course just pouring their hearts out about anger, lust, temptation to skip prayers, and all these things, and then guys encouraging them and sharing personal stories of what God's doing in that specific area as it relates to them. I'm like, I
Mhm.
I just stand there like holding back the emotions because
Yeah.
you know in reality, the what a privilege to get to
Mhm.
be part of these dudes' lives and to see that carried over and implemented in small sects of groups of all different kinds. Not everybody's an archer in our church, but you got guys that are doing jujitsu fight clubs. You got guys that do
Awesome.
time at the range, and then a lot of the fight clubs are just at church. They just show up and they're 2 hours in the Word, and that's great.
Mhm.
Um, I hate sitting still, and after a long day, I'm ready to get out and do something and get
Yeah.
my brain engaged again. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just kind of why we implemented it the way that we did.
That's
One
awesome.
of the things I think that people underestimate, and you haven't said this, but I think I can pick up on this, is that this isn't like one of many offerings that you do. This is like the heart and soul of what you do. And I think that's the problem, is that it's like we want to dabble in groups. We want to continue to do Sunday school on Sunday night and Wednesday night, and we're going to add small groups.
Yeah.
And if you really want small groups to take off, whatever you call them and whatever the format is, you kind of have to go all in on
Mhm.
groups. And
Yep, we do.
when we started the church here, we said for the first couple of years, we're like, the only thing we're going to do is Sunday morning in groups. We're not offering anything else. Well, what about women's ministry? No. Men's ministry? No. We're going to do groups and we're going to do Sunday mornings. That's it. Because that's, and we would say from the pulpit, if you have to pick, we'd rather you were in a group than come to Sunday mornings. If you only have one slot a week, it's that important. We think you'd be better off to be in a group. Just to try to help people understand, like we're not fooling around about this. This is like the thing. And so we'll sometimes have more adults in groups during the week than we actually have in service on Sunday. Which I think is fantastic. And that's our scoreboard. We don't Sunday morning attendance is not the way we keep score. People in groups is how we keep score. How many group leaders, how many pastors we've trained, how many churches we planted. That's how we keep score, right?
Yeah, good.
So that leads to a kind of a second question, second topic. Obviously, I think I know the answer to this, but at some point the goal, right, is not to have, you know, Adam, the super hunter, charismatic preacher, small group leader, be like with the same 10 guys for all of time. At some
Correct.
point, you're trying to spin people out to become leaders in their own right or to facilitators of their own groups. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like a hard and fast policy, but our goal always is no longer than 2 years in a group before we've trained somebody up. And so we started a small group 2 years ago, a actual couples tab group. Not 2 years ago, it would have been a year and a half ago, in the fall. And that group, I'll do a lot of counseling on with couples Wednesdays, whatever. And then your counseling load gets too big, and so you're trying to figure out, I need to bump these people to something new and fresh because I got other people that need to counsel. And so I would just invite them into my small group, and then that grew massively. And so we trained up another couple, and they've now split off with a group that's multiplied out of that. And then the original group is led by someone else now, and I run another group. So we're just always, when you see those leaders in there, they'll all tell you that they're not capable, not able, I don't know
Yeah,
enough,
I've
and
heard it
all.
all. Yeah.
But you find someone with humility, willingness to learn and serve, and you just watch them blossom in that space.
Yeah.
And I start by giving them like little minimalist roles, important roles, not to downplay them, but like, could you help with the food coordination for this week? Sure, I'll take it over. And so
That's
they're
just code for like, will you bring brownies? Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
we do like a meal, man.
Oh man, you're not playing around. Okay.
Yeah,
Man,
must contain meat.
In Oregon, we got to be very specific about the brownies.
The brownies can be different.
Yes, you do. We're there now as well. We've got some of the
Michigan,
similar
okay.
problems. So, but yeah, that you'll watch them kind of take leadership roles in something like that,
Or
and then
hosting or like, yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Cool.
we'll do like, hey, we're going to be out of town this week, but instead of canceling small group, why don't you lead this week?
Absolutely.
I don't know if I can do that. And then
Yeah.
feedback from the group that said that was some of the deepest discussion that we've ever had, which is fantastic because the preacher wasn't there and now everybody actually shares, right?
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
I'm out. I won't be there again. You guys keep running,
I just handed off a group and I was kind of soft pedaling, like, I think you can do it, and you don't need me there. And then he's like, actually, the conversations are better when you're not there. I'm like, okay, it's yours. See you
Fine.
later.
exactly.
Yeah, all yours. I'm out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. So there's no like questioning here, like or criticizing. I always wonder with multi-site, does that philosophy of discipleship ever carry over to multi-site? Is there ever a point where the church is like ready to be on its own and you send them out, or is it always under the umbrella of the mothership?
Right now, our plan is to maintain that kind of what the way that we phrase it is three campuses, one church. And the growth into those other campuses was because of just we have no more room. And so let's plan another campus and then people can split up.
Yeah.
But we're not against those becoming their own church. Like they are, other than the preaching on Sunday morning. Every other function of that church is independent of,
Right.
um, they're running all their own programs and things.
Right.
Um, but it's an we've been studying a lot of Larry Osborne stuff, which I was glad you mentioned sticky teams and
Right.
church. Um, but just trying to figure out what is the best method in the space that we're in, um, to continue to carry the message that we're putting out each week, and making sure that it stays at a level that maintains unity across the campuses.
Mhm.
But it's a catch 22, I guess is the best way to put it, because there's every week somebody's like, oh, I don't really like watching the screen. And it's like, okay, well, come on up to the main campus. Well, that's 50 minutes away. This is what we have to offer right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that's the spirit behind, what we started here was that, we planted a church in Oregon, stayed 17 years, felt like it was time to plant again, and had COVID hit and was like, well, we've got time on our hands to do some thinking, and it was a gift, to have a bunch of lockdown time in Oregon, thinking about how I wanted to plant this church in Idaho. And one of the conclusions early on was I just want everything we do to be reproducible.
Hmm.
So, baked into the Great Commission is the idea that disciples make disciples. Um, and a lot of people say that it's not original to me. But then you go, could pastors train pastors? Could we start raising up pastors to lead churches? Or is it like always like gotta be me, and then the idea of like, and then churches reproduce themselves by planting churches? And it's the same thing that you guys have discovered. When you start saying these things to people, there's all these reasons why it just can't work. You're a real anomaly, to have 1,000 people in a town of 600 and something people. That may not be reproducible. That might be something that's like a one-off that you just, praise the Lord and give him all the credit. And I'm sure you guys do. But for a lot of people, it's like, wow, we've got a really healthy church of 150. We're in a town of 2,000. How do we plant churches? It's like, well, you guys are uniquely qualified to lead healthy churches of 150 in small towns. You've just never had the vision to go, what would it look like if we made disciples, and from disciples emerged disciple makers, and from disciple makers, pastors are trained. And if pastors are being trained, they're going to want somewhere to lead, and church planter. There you go. And that's kind of a progression that I'm kind of trying to work with. And the people that I find to do this so far, we're only planning our fourth church this year. Um, but they're like they're crazy people. It's like, why would you,
With
send out
rage and ADD.
why would you send out your best leaders
Yeah.
when they can help you grow your church bigger? Well, and the overriding thing I think for me has been that I changed my mind from church growth to kingdom growth.
Yep.
And that completely flipped the script on everything. So it's like it doesn't matter how big my church is. And we say periodically on the show, we're not like against bigger churches or think small churches are better, big churches are bad. Nothing like that. Just to say it like, hey, what if we all just thought about the kingdom of God? And that's probably why someone like you is willing to jump on a screen as people like you don't know to talk about what the Lord's doing and for the sake of the kingdom. So appreciate you coming on today. How do
Yeah.
people find about more about this hunting thing that you're part of? You kind of mentioned it, but tell us
Yeah.
real quickly, what's the title of that?
Hunting the Harvest.
Hunting the Harvest. Okay.
Yep. They can find me on Instagram is probably the easiest
Okay.
way. And then it just became a 501(c)(3). So we'll have a website and stuff being developed over the
Coming
next few.
soon. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And what's the purpose of that organization that you started?
So that specifically deals with sportsman's banquets, wild game dinners within churches.
Love
Um,
it.
we help like coordinate for churches, just as we'll offer consulting if they're looking to start that kind of a outdoorsman's ministry.
Okay.
Uh, and then we host some camps, some hunting camps. I'm speaking for FCA Outdoors Camp next weekend. So a lot of different ways that we minister to folks. Our dream is that as I get older, at some point, if I step out of local church ministry this will be kind of a full-time project, facilitating hunting camps, fishing camps, speaking, traveling, that kind of thing. So,
Okay, that's awesome. Well,
Sweet.
you're sound like a busy man.
Just followed you on Instagram.
let's go.
Sweet.
I like it. Well, Adam, thanks for coming on today. I'll be sure and put the links in the bio. Definitely how to get the brass knuckle t-shirt.
Absolutely. I'm going to order that as soon as they're done here.
You guys just text me your address. I'll get you one. Give me a size and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
That sounds great. Okay. Perfect.
Seriously, rock that thing. Wear it on the next episode.
Yeah, that'd be great. We actually had, what was that guy we had on? Matthew Anderson from Utah.
Yeah.
Utah
Spica.
Valley Church. And he does FICA, which is like
Spica USA.
Camo hunting company, and they have really, really good, well-priced gear. And he's a pastor of a church plant in the most Mormon city in America. It's incredible. He's incredible. I know you've not listened to our podcast yet, but if you do, listen to his episode. So
I will. Now that I've met you guys, I'll definitely will.
Okay. He's got an epic beard too.
Yeah, he does.
Put us all to shame.
Oh yeah.
Well, hey, to our listeners, thanks for checking us out. Be sure and look up our sponsors at 9centprinting.com. If you like what we're doing, please like or subscribe wherever you watch or listen. If you're interested in Small Town Network, you can find us online at smalltownnetwork.com. And if you believe the importance of planting disciple-making churches in smaller communities, we'd love you to consider partnering with us in prayer and financial support. You've been listening to the Small Town Pastor Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by 9centprinting.com. With over 100 5-star reviews, 9centprinting.com is ready to meet all your printing needs. Are you a church plant or a small church with no copy machine? No problem. 9cent Printing has you covered. If you need bulletins, flyers, books, cards, offering envelopes, posters, they do it all. I know the Christian owners of this business personally, and I'm not just a fan, I'm also a customer. Fast, nationwide shipping, affordable, professional, wow printing at wow prices. Check them out at 9centprinting.com.